Hello, thank you very much for inviting me to speak. Sarah asked me to speak personally as a carer and also from my role as governor. And I'm very pleased to be at this particular slot because I've just been sitting here and for about the last 4 or 5 presentations, which have all been fascinating, I've been saying, yes, there's a role for carers in there too. And I know it's sort of, I know that I'm preaching to the converted here who think, yes, we need to involve carers. But seeing even some of these presentations, there are still gaps in there where a carer input would be really good. Therapeutic letters, the very last one we heard, yes, that I would love. I read the letters that come to my daughter. Something like that would help me a huge amount to have it more descriptive. So I can see that we should all get back together again later and find the little bits, the gaps where carers can play a part in this really interesting development of promise. So I'll just speak very briefly on those two things. One, from a personal experience, and secondly, as a governor. 12 years or so ago, when my daughter was diagnosed with schizophrenia after several years of illness, really, I was just her mother. I was an anxious parent, not understanding or dealing with very well what was happening. But somehow, within a few years, I found I was identifying myself as a carer. And with someone with a serious mental illness, that brings kind of lots of different things, including very complex emotions around duty, guilt, responsibility, and a powerful sense of inadequacy. I mean, that sounds quite gloomy. That is how you feel. However, it doesn't also stop you feeling the love and the enjoyment you have gained bringing up your child, and that is still there. But those overwhelming emotions, I think, speaking to friends and colleagues in Rethink as well, particularly for carers of people with serious mental illness, those feelings are almost universal for carers. We now feel fortunate because we know how much our daughter loves her family, and we are humbled by how courageous she is in coping with relentless voices and hallucinations. But you all know, and we know, that other carers have much more difficult experiences. It is very dislocating living with someone with a serious mental illness. It can divide families as well as bind them. You have to protect yourself at the same time as defending your loved one at all costs. I mean, Manan's talk this morning was really powerful, and I really appreciated you talking like that, Manan. But the picture that came to me, whether it's because of I am a mother and a carer, was the way you described how, as you left the room, the mother was pleading with her son to stop hitting. And somehow, it is the carer often is the last stop, the last backstop. And I think it's important that health professionals, well, all of us, remember that. It can be a very lonely role because you are the final count, really. Anyway, we did have a discussion at Rethink, actually, where we thought our greatest hope would be if we could all be made redundant, that services were so brilliant, recovery really worked, and and it's a brilliant model, and our young people ended up, our sons and daughters had a fulfilling life beyond illness, and we could revert to being parents, siblings, spouses. And that's really the great hope as a carer. Anyway, I'd just like to say that also as carers, we do have a special vantage point on services, and sometimes we can see the gaps more clearly than health professionals and service users. As things stand now, we suggest priority should lie with best support at times of crisis and a stepped approach to being discharged into care in the community. So thank you, Emma, for enhanced primary care may serve some of that purpose too. There is a crippling information gap for carers. especially in the early stages of serious illness? What can you expect to happen after a first episode of illness and then diagnosis? I mean, you just really have no idea. What are the interventions beyond medication? What are the roles of the many people who cross our paths and their names? I'm a great fan of the Recovery College model as a coach, Recovery College and the coach model, as Sharon knows, because I commented in detail on the thing. But it won't be an easy concept to get across to people. All these terms that me, having been a governor for a while, we get familiar with and you as health professionals are using, they are baffling. They're baffling to the public who haven't experienced mental illness, but they are baffling to carers. So the information gap is also about communication and communicating more clearly. We have had good reports from Hearts Parts about something they do there, and I think there's someone from here today, maybe we should be following up. Another priority for carers is to see social care, employment and benefits working properly together. So thank you, Charlotte, because you said an awful lot of what I would have said, and I think there's a lot of singing on the same hymn sheet, and that's good news. In a strong evidence-based led trust, can CPFT lead the way on ensuring, for instance, the NICE guidelines on talking therapies for mental illness are properly taken up? Anyway, I know most of those gaps won't be news to you, but they kind of reflect how carers are feeling, and I have drawn a lot on colleagues at Rethink. But as a governor, I want to end on a positive note by telling you how we as governors are pleased with the action CPFT is taking to meet carers' needs. I mean, it's been really a happy congruence of the Care Act changes, a bit of CCG commissioning, and fueled, as those who know me will perhaps agree, by continuous banging on about it by governors. So there is now a systematic programme to meet carers' needs. It's led by Elaine Young, and the programme board is chaired by Heather Lloyd-Jones, who's a carer. So that's really good integration. I'll just mention three things that I feel are good news. The triangle of care is at last being implemented, and you'll all be familiar with it because many of you will be working on the assessments. When it works well, I think triangle of care cements the interdependent relationship between carers, service users, and health professionals, so that services can be more personalised and responsive. So promise, it just fits perfectly with that. One thing I'm really pleased about is the changes that Elaine has worked on with Rio, with colleagues, because it now includes a carer's record alongside the service user detail. As a carer, you often thought all the discussions you were having were going into thin air. You knew that people were listening, but where was it going? There was no way of knowing. I really appreciate the fact that there is now a carer record sitting alongside the service user's record, and it will include wishes too. So again, some of the discussions around the therapeutic letters, let's see if that fits in with carer records too. I referred earlier, well, I didn't because I missed out that bit, but I referred earlier to the stress that caring can engender. And so we are very pleased that the Psychological Wellbeing Service is creating a service that specifically addresses psychological help for carers, and they'll know how to get it, and they'll be able to self-refer. Good news. So finally, thank you again. And I did a little bit of researching for papers that would be relevant. There was a paper in April 2015, a meta-analysis of interventions for carers in the Journal of Psychiatry. Interventions for carers should be considered as part of integrated services for people with severe mental health problems. That was the conclusion from the meta-analysis. Listening to what you're talking about, Promise, I've every hope and confidence that the Promise Charter will do that, will integrate carers in so that it can deliver more responsive and therapeutic care, which we all want, and carers must be at the heart of those changes. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.